Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, and welcome to Communication in Crisis. My name's Kylie Warry, author, speaker, and trainer. Today we're talking about how to manage and move forward from the crisis. I like to call this how we treat the crisis, or how we treat the wound from the crisis, because we've all been through a trauma before and we need to do something to get out of that mode and back into a mode that's a helpful one. Today we're speaking about how the crisis affects the powerful and the patient communicator. So if you've been through a crisis, you're probably thinking, how do I deal with the storm? In a crisis, there's such a flurry of emotions and things that are out of your control, and it can really push your buttons in the wrong way. Now, trauma affects each of us the same way, but the thing is we show up differently from that trauma. Some of us get louder, and some of us get more quiet. Some of us get serious, and some of us make more jokes and get crazy. And you need to know how it affects you and how you might be responding to that storm. You see, you don't want to make the crisis even worse. And the problem is that our communication actually naturally gets worse when we're in a crisis. The moment that our emotional brain takes over, we start to respond in ways that we normally wouldn't. And a perfect example of that is, have you ever said anything in a moment of anger or upset that you've later regretted? Most of us can relate to that, and that's a perfect example of how a storm can affect us during a communication crisis. So we don't want to get stuck in this negative cycle of offence. We don't want to be in a crisis and end up feeling resentful and stuck in that mode. You see, all of us are in danger of this happening to us. And it's all about how we respond to that crisis. And really, when you think about it, the only thing that any of us have control over is our responses. So the more you understand yourself, the more you can actually look at what you're doing in a crisis and realize what's happening, then you can actually start to gain back that control and go into a healthier cycle rather than a cycle of offence. Let's say, for example, you are dealing with a crisis in your personal world. Say, for example, you're in a relationship and it's hitting the rocks and you just don't know what to do about it. The more you try, the worse things get. Now, this is starting to affect your work. Before, work used to be a healthy distraction, but now it's actually adding to the pressure. And your performance is starting to go downhill because you're not coping with this personal crisis. You might not tell anyone at work because you're a bit embarrassed or because you just don't think they can help you. We all respond differently in a crisis. Some of us speak about it and some of us keep it all inside. The thing is, it's becoming everyone else's issue because it's affecting your performance at work. Now, you can do something about this that's healthy, that moves you out of that crisis and starts to deal with the problem, or you can avoid it, ignore it, keep pushing through and doing nothing differently, and that only makes it worse. So it's your choice here. Do you want to be in this cycle of offence, or do you want to move into a healthier cycle? The cycle that I call courageous communication. It's where you've got the courage to look inward and look at what is working and maybe what isn't. And when you've got the courage to speak up and ask for the help that you need, because all of us need help from time to time. None of us is an island. Some of us struggle to ask for help. For example, the powerful communicator. There's probably nothing worse for them than to put their hand up and ask for help. But that's their battle and that's something they need to work through. And others are great at asking for help. They just might not realise when the right time is. Today we're focusing after the impact and the trauma or the wound of the crisis, and what do we do with that wound? You see, the thing is we don't want to stay wounded. I remember years ago running anger management classes. Now everybody in that room was wounded. Something had happened and they'd got stuck in that cycle of offence, stuck in that mode of resentment. And the sad thing was every single interaction they'd had moving forward, they took all that offence, all of that baggage with them. And they couldn't understand what they were contributing to the crisis. They couldn't understand that they were actually making things worse for themselves because they were stuck in that really unhelpful place. They hadn't done the right things to get the treatment for the wound. Now, as you'll notice in this episode, we're looking at the two communication styles, the powerful and the patient. And what you'll notice is the treatment for them is very different. And in the next episode, we'll look at the playful and the perfectionist communicator. And it's key to know this because, first of all, you've got your own communication DNA style, but also you're dealing with people that have different styles as well. And so whether it's personal or professional, you will have crises in your life and you need to know how to help in those crises, not to add to it and make it worse. One of the biggest things that we can give anyone when they're in crisis is understanding. Now that alone takes courage because you need to look past what's happening, past the offence, and be able to give them understanding. It takes a very mature, very wise person to be able to do that because in a crisis, when people are behaving in a way that is offensive or difficult, we can easily let our emotions run away with us. And it's really important to actually step away, depersonalize it, look at the situation for what it is, and realise that you can actually do things to help it. Realise, like I did with my workmate who was in a crisis, that it wasn't about me. Her poor behaviour at work had nothing to do with her disrespecting me as her leader. It was all about her. We tend to personalise things far too much, and if you can actually step back and give someone the gift of understanding, particularly when they're in a crisis, it makes such a difference. It actually will feel like that little ray of sunshine just peeking through the clouds. It will give them a bit of hope to get through. Because let's face it, in a crisis, we can feel like there is no hope at times. And we need something positive, someone to believe in us, something to hang on to, so we can get through that storm and start to learn and move forward in that crisis. Remembering that a crisis complicates everything. It complicates our relationships, it complicates our emotions, it complicates how we communicate. So we have to simplify things, which is why this roadmap is so simple. There's 3 steps. You need to first understand yourself, understand your strengths, understand your needs, understand your responses in a crisis. Once you understand yourself, and that can take a while because we are quite complex, you then need to be able to understand others. Are they the same as you? Are they the opposite? How different are they? What's their response in a crisis? What values do they bring to the team? What strengths have they got? You need to understand this so you can work well with them and bring out the best in terms of collaboration. And the 3rd step is communicating with intention. Now, most of us just spit words out. And when we're in a crisis, that happens even more. We can say things based on emotion, we can say things based on the fact that we're overwhelmed and we're stressed out, and all that does is add to the crisis. What I'm asking you to do is understand yourself, understand others, and then have a goal when you communicate. Know what your intention is. Is it to encourage someone? Is it to share your needs with them? Is it to solve a problem? What are you communicating for? Do it with intention, with care, and with purpose. And when you do that, you will have much more effective communication. And in terms of poor communication, you'll be clawing back some of that profit that could be going down the drain due to poor communication. You'll actually be upping your productivity and have a team that has a stronger morale and better productivity because everyone's able to get on and do their job. Communication DNA. We're all different. We're all born with preferences and needs and strengths. I wonder if you started to lean towards one of the communication styles if you've been watching the episodes up until now. But we're all very, very different. My communication DNA is the powerful perfectionist. I'm a combination of the two. Now, all of us have a bit of all 4, but you've got 1 or 2 dominant styles. And that will come out in how you show up in the world, whether you are a talker, whether you're a doer, whether you're a thinker, or whether you are more of a supporter. It's critical that you take that first step to that roadmap of better communication and understand yourself. You need to know your strengths, what you bring, but also what can go wrong for you in a crisis. Today we're looking at the powerful communicator and how to treat them once they've been through some type of communication trauma, when something has gone wrong. Now, if you remember, these guys are only about 10% of the population. They're forceful, they're on purpose, you know exactly where you stand with these guys because they tell you. They are attracted to roles that allow them to make decisions. You see, they love control. They love the fact that they can walk in and make a decision and everyone has to listen to them. That's their favourite place. Their least favourite place is when someone else is trying to tell them what to do. So it's really important that as a powerful communicator, you understand that about yourself. But it's also important if you're working with someone like this because they can be a little bit hard to deal with sometimes, particularly in a crisis. Now, remembering, the famous example of the powerful communicator is the lovely Judge Judy. What we observe about these guys is that they're direct, they're pushy, and they can come across as aggressive at times. What they want is results. They're very goal-orientated, they have a goal for everything, they're in a rush because they are pushing forward for that goal. They just want that result. And what they need is control. So when you think about a crisis, something that's pretty much guaranteed in a crisis is a loss of control. So that's one of the big drivers for these guys to become very stressed and very tense and difficult to deal with because they don't have a sense of control. Now, we spoke about this a little bit last time, the wounded, powerful communicator. What you notice most about these guys is the anger that comes from them. They're not getting results, they're feeling out of control, and they just get angry. Now, the funny thing about this is that they don't realise how angry they are. This is normal for them. They have no idea that the effect that their anger has on other people. Now think about yourself when you're dealing with an angry person. Do you want to work with them? Do you want to walk towards them and have a conversation? Or would you be like, get out of my face, you are really aggressive and I don't want to deal with you? You see, they don't ever get told how they come across in relationships when they're angry because, frankly, people are frightened. So one of the things that's really interesting when I'm coaching these guys and working one-on-one with them is having that really honest conversation about perceptions and letting them know that their behaviour can be really in your face and aggressive. It pushes people away and it actually affects their ability to get those results. So what can you do? If you're dealing with this angry, powerful communicator and you're in a crisis, so you need to deal with them, one of the things you can do is draw a line in the sand, put some boundaries in place. Because they're not aware of how they come across at times, it can be really simple in you just saying, wow, that was direct, or that's a bit offensive. You just need to let them know how their behaviour is affecting you. Now, for some of you out there, you're probably shaking at the knees because that involves speaking up. And speaking up to an angry person, who wants to do that? The problem is, if you don't speak up, things will not get better. The problem will grow, they will get even more angry, and the thing is that the crisis will not be solved. So you need to be courageous, you need to speak.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.